we also have another story. This is Kevin Kraut, Ogden Kraut's son. This is a kind of an interesting story that happened with me. This is not a folklore. This is actually what happened. I had a friend, his name was Hal Jensen. He passed away several years ago. And Hal and I had done a lot of research and study, and Hal knew Hebrew pretty good. And he got into the Bible codes really heavy. And he said, you know, I really feel like the Bible codes that they run on the computers are a little bit off. They've kind of made them so they're not quite so honest or whatever. And he says the best way to find out about Bible codes is to understand Hebrew and to go back and look at the codes. And so I walked into his bedroom, and he had all these codes all over the ceiling and down on the walls and on the floor. And you go, man, Hal, you're going wacky on me here. What's going on? And he says, no, I've almost got it, like a mad scientist, you know. And I says, okay, what is it, Hal? What is it? And he said, I think I know how to know when the end begins, the beginning of the end of the world, and what's starting, what will start it. And I said, well, what's that? And he says, well, he said, I think what happened, and he's trying to put the pieces together, and he says, it looks to me like in King Solomon's time, they actually, in the temple, did the unthinkable thing or something like that. And I said, what does that mean, you know? And he says, well, it means that they did a gay act or a sexual act in the temple itself. And I said, what? Are you kidding? And he said, yeah, the Lord tolerated all the women and all the different, you know, religious things and whatever. But when they did that, it was kind of like the last straw. And the Lord allowed all of that to become desolate. And they call it the desolation of abomination. And I said, that's interesting. And so he says, I think we're going to see the same pattern. It's going to come again, and it's going to swing around another wave. And we're going to see the same thing happen in the LDS church. And we're going to see men to men being married in the temple or sealed in the temple again. And I said, you're kidding. And he said, now when that happens, I think it's going to be the same type of pattern. That's going to be the time of the end. That's when the Lord will put his stop. That's when all the earthquakes, the desolation of abomination will begin. So that's his belief, not mine. It's a very interesting thought. It's a provocative thought. The interesting thing about it is that it also makes it sound like because of the 501c3 status, if the United States or the states begin to ratify or allow gay marriages in, and let's say it goes all over the United States, once again, it's not so much a church and it's not so much an institution, it is a corporation. And as a corporation, they will have to comply, they will have to go with that, and they will have to allow gays in. Now, I did talk to a girl whose father happened to be in the upper echelons of the church, and she told me that they're already considering a way to maybe keep this at bay by the bishops performing it in the church or something, maybe something to kind of keep things kind of in its place. And the interesting thing on that is the dad wrote a letter to the general authorities. It's one of the only letters that they never wrote really back and answer a response. And in the letter, he quoted several places where they talk about you can be a member of the church in good standing and have gay feelings and have gay whatever, but in beliefs, you can believe that you're gay, you can believe that gays are okay, you can believe in all that, and as long as you don't act out on it, then you're okay. You can do everything fine, you can hold priesthood callings, you can do all that. And so Dad wrote back and he said, now wait a minute. I said, what if a person believes in his heart that he's a polygamist at heart? And what if he doesn't act out on it? He doesn't go and start living polygamy, but he believes in it. What about that? Well, you know, anybody that believes in plural marriage, they'll throw out quickly, very quickly. It's just one of those P words that you just can't say. And so with that, how do you answer that? That was a very difficult one. And so we see now, we will see almost a reversal of time where a man could not hold a priesthood calling or could not abide in that calling unless he abided by the law of celestial or plural marriage. Seymour B. Young was called into the apostleship, and the Lord said in that, "Thus saith the Lord," Revelation, he said, "and if he will abide by my law." And so he had to abide by that law in order to be in the actual 12 apostles. And so now we see it just reversed. Now we're going from polygamy being banned, polygamy being abolished, hatred towards all polygamists. Now there's the love for the gays and honor the gays and allow the gays in. And so we're seeing this tide going back. Now we see this whole situation coming to event. And it wouldn't be so upsetting to some of the fundamentalist people if it was okay for the fundamentalists to be in the church, and just as long as they didn't act out on it or whatever. Okay for the gays to be in church as long as they didn't act out on it or whatever. But there's no balancing here. We're going dark here, people. We're going away from the original beliefs of the teachings of the early brethren. So anyway, it's kind of an interesting thing, and we will see this happen.